Hello, we are back from our break. We are well watered,
Refreshed.
all ready.
Plants.
Yes, you are.
Yeah, you might be. You never know. We might all be sentient plants that were planted by the great old ones.
I'm a cucumber with anxiety. I require liquids.
So, we're continuing with some more Lovecraft stuff in part 2. We're going straight into the Call of Cthulhu role-playing game. Which is a little bit of a first review. We have spoken about Call of Cthulhu on the podcast previously. Obviously, it is in our list of games to play later this year. But as I said earlier, we have played a home game. Lasted 4 weeks. It's just an adventure from the Keeper's Handbook. I was the keeper. Nathan was one of my players. We also had Swin
victims.
Or victims. That's one way of putting it. Yeah. We also had Swin and John and Jordan from the D&D series, as well as someone you don't know, another friend of ours called Andrew. It's another Andrew, different Andrew to the one that appears on the D&D stuff.
One of them's going to have to change his name.
To be fair,
all right, Deed Pole, we got a job for you.
Your name's now Barry.
Barry. I think we've taken to calling other Andrew, non-D&D Andrew, Andy instead, which is our normal go-to.
You should have called the D&D one and D&D.
How did we miss this?
I don't know. That's yes.
This, Heather, is why you work with words and we don't.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
D&D.
Oh,
amazing. So we had 5 players. I've just gone through it. Yes, there were 5 players. Yeah, as well as me. Going into it, I was looking forward to playing the system. I read all of the rules first because that's what I do. I get a rule book. Actually, I can grab the rule book. This is the rule book
From the ether.
Yeah, from the ether. It's got a decent chunk to it.
Oh yeah. It's a weighty boy.
Yeah,
that's a good doorstop.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which I didn't read all of it because some of it I didn't need to read. There was a chapter on grimoires, and that I didn't need to read. I didn't need to know what all the eldritch. Actually, no, I did read that. Sorry, no, I didn't read the section on the actual monsters. I just didn't read the enemies because I was like, I don't need to read all of the enemies. There's a lot in here. There's rules for Cthulhu in here, which is funny.
I hope you never have to use them.
Yeah, same.
Down,
there is also,
Cthulhu, down.
It has rules for colours. So the colours out of space. There are rules for that in this book.
Nice.
And there are also rules for a dimensional shambler. So the thing that was in the Call of Cthulhu video game, it does exist as an actual entity in this book. That's cool. So I read the rules and loved them so much that I organised to start playing some games before we were supposed to start doing anything with it. Because I was like, I want to give these rules a test. I want to see if they're as good as I think they're going to be from just reading them. And having finished it up, I believe they're as good, if not better, than what I read them as. I got a lot wrong, I'm not going to lie. There was a lot of things I did wrong, but I'm allowed to get things wrong because it's the first time I run the system, and
I mean, that's fair enough. I mean, that seems like an acceptable level.
Yeah.
This is why you run things off camera first.
Yes, exactly that. And there's a lot of rules. I mean, I'm good with learning rules, and I got most of them right, so I'm happy. I'll take
It's a big book of rules.
It's a big book of rules. And the main things I got wrong were like skill usage, using the wrong skill, which is understandable when there's something like 30 of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a hell of a sheet, man.
It is a hell of a sheet.
When we were doing character creation, I was just like, you want me to write in how many?
Yeah, I mean, I can get an example of the character sheet because it is in this book. These are available for free on the Chaosium website, if Cthulhu will let me. That's the character sheet. So it's got a bit of chunk to it as well. It's a 2-page sheet.
Each one of those stats has 3 boxes.
Yeah, each stat has got 3 boxes.
Nice.
Yeah.
So yeah, going into it was looking forward to it. I don't know, Nathan, if you had any thoughts going into it.
I had no idea what I was letting myself in for because, as previously stated, I have no Cthulhu mythos experience other than all I know. Crazy shit. Big things make you do crazy shit. Space. That's all I know.
I mean, that's all you need, really.
Yeah, I mean that was my basis going in. Yeah. I was like, I don't know if this is like a super combat heavy one or one of these ones where it's just pure theater going. So I didn't really know what I was getting into, to be honest. So yeah.
I do think the character creation is different. I'm gonna go with different. Especially,
character creation was kind of intense.
Yeah, it was. I think so far, what I've done 3 systems for character creation. I've done D&D, obviously, lots and lots of D&D. Character creation in D&D is super easy. Vampire the Masquerade 5th edition, which is also kind of intense, but that's because character creation isn't just character creation. There's more to it. The actual building of a character isn't all that difficult. It's just sort of
it's sort of where vampire becomes more involved is the whole merging all of the characters together as one group. That's where it kind of gets and some of the backstory sort of stuff kind of makes that a little bit more involved than sort of your standard D&D RPG. But yeah, I found actually setting up the character for Cthulhu slightly complicated because there's a lot of roles involved, and then you've got to do a whole bunch of maths as well on top of that, and you're like,
because the way it works is this is the interesting. So obviously D&D, I hate randomized stats. I do not like randomized stats. I refuse to let people re-roll stats because I've had the experience now of, as a player, having a character that I've rolled the best the best combination of stats I could have rolled reasonably. It wasn't 6 18s, but it was I had an 18 and a 16 and whatnot. So my character was insanely powerful from the get-go, and was better than everyone else's character. Just all the things, because of the way my stats had rolled. And I've had the experience as a dungeon master of having a character with stats that were so insanely good that they were just better at things than everyone else, even though the other characters are supposed to be specialized at those things. Which is a bit okay, those are not good things. There shouldn't be one character who just by definition steals the limelight because they can always succeed. I got rid of rolled stats almost immediately. I played a campaign with rolled stats, and then I ran a campaign with rolled stats, I think I did 2 campaigns with rolled stats, and then I went, now that can go away. We're using point buy going forwards. Call of Cthulhu has a point buy method. We used roll stats.
Just to change things up.
Yeah, just change things up. But that's because a big thing with Call of Cthulhu is it's not that punishing for rolling your stats. Because you have your stats and then you have your skills. The stats only affect your stats, and then the skills are generated in a different method. So it's not like, D&D, if you've got bad strength, you're going to have bad athletics. If you've got bad dex, you're going to have bad acrobatics, and you're going to have a bad AC, and you're going to have a bad initiative roll, etc, etc. So it matters more to have your stats being high. For Cthulhu, it's just if you need to do a strength, the only thing that's affected is your strength. If you need to do some sort of intelligence roll, the only thing that's based on is your intelligence roll. But intelligence-based skills, things like languages or sciences or things like that, aren't affected by your intelligence score. They're just here's a skill, and you roll according to the skill instead. Which is nice, and it has there are some methods that allow for sort of covering for if someone rolls awfully on everything, so that you can sort of just be okay, you've rolled really badly, here's a system that we can use that will boost those numbers up a bit. At least that's what I thought. That's why we had a vote on what we wanted to do, and people were happy to do the rolling or were indifferent towards whatever they were doing.
I was one of the ones that went, I am indifferent, but that's because having not done it, like, because it was like literally my first instance of touching this system, I was like, I don't really know what impact the different system's going to have on it, so like, I don't really care. Whatever it is, I'll deal.
Yeah.
But I do think rolling it worked out fine.
Yeah.
We had some pretty good grouping going on with stats.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was the thing about by the end of it. It didn't matter that some people had got ridiculous in something and not ridiculous in other things, and some people would just average everything because it worked.
Yeah.
There was only 3 or 4 occasions where you actually rolled any dice against your stats. So
yeah.
That was always good. And then generating skills. Skills do come about from one of your stats, because it's like you get skill points based on your education and then your occupation, and that gives you a total number that you distribute amongst your skills. There is an element of it connecting, but then once play starts, you can start leveling up your skills and whatnot. It doesn't have experience. Call of Cthulhu has no experience. You don't get experience. When you succeed in a skill, you mark it, and at the end of a adventure, you get to see whether your skill increases.
You just get to stay alive.
Yeah.
There's also that.
Yes.
And I mean, because we literally finished this yesterday.
Yeah.
And out of the 8 things that I'd succeeded to check on during play, all but one of them went up by 10%. The only one that didn't go up was the one I had 80 in to start with, because you've got to roll above it. Rolling an 81 upwards is quite hard on a D100. So that was the only one that didn't go up, and I'm fine with that.
Yeah. That is John has pointed out in the chat that one of the limitations of the characters is there's not much character development with the actual stats. Yes, the stats of your character are not likely to change over the course of the campaign, except for maybe going down as you get older. Your stats will decrease. You're going to watch as your strength and your dex and your con goes down and your appearance goes down, etc. But there's no real like, I want to be stronger, so I'm going to go do that. It's like, well, no, you don't. You're not stronger.
Yeah, there's those few points where like someone would manage to roll like a 4 or 5 on one of those standard like blank stats. So like, because they will have like a default number to them. So if you don't have anything in that stat, you get the default numbers. And like, there were a couple of occasions where people managed to roll under the default numbers on those stats, which are like, it's generally like a really hard roll because they're super low. So like at the end of the campaign, they did then gain something in that stat, having been able to pass it during play. But that is the only way that your stats are ever going to improve.
Yes, indeed. It did take a long old time to build the characters as well. It took a very long time. And we didn't actually finish character creation. That's also the other thing. Part of it we just didn't do because it didn't matter for the campaign. It's very intensive. I think potentially something I have learned that I might change going forwards for character creation is I would do up until the end of the sort of the occupation and the personal interest points with everyone, and then I would end a session there, and then do everything past that on an individual basis. The things like equipment and the backstory elements and whatever else is on your sheet, I think would work better on a one-on-one to just have a bit more of an in-depth discussion about what needs to go on there.
I could see that.
So it's just like we do all the rolling together and we build the actual numbers, and then the important stuff we'll do separately and work it all out. During play was it did feel different. It felt very different.
I think in a way it felt kind of smoother than D&D in like, it's hard to put like an actual like words to it, but just things sort of kind of rolled a lot quicker. Yeah. There was no like when we play D&D, there's always like 1,000,001 questions and scene setting, but in this there was a lot of like just the scene keeps going, and there is this and that, and there's like 5 minutes where we're going, oh, we investigate this thing and that thing and that thing, and then we just keep going until you get, and the scene just keeps getting played out and played out and played out until you get to this next barrier. And it did feel quite nicely flowing through the whole thing, which was quite nice. And there's no sort of excessive rolls, and there's no, oh, I want to do this check, and because the keeper just goes, you don't need to. Just don't waste the time. This is here. Keep going.
Yeah, that is a mechanic that I super enjoyed. Was just the, D&D's got perception check, and a player can ask to do a perception check at any point to see if there's something there, and you roll the dice, and then you go, yes, there is, or no, there isn't. With Call of Cthulhu, the baseline basically is there's a spot hidden check instead rather than perception, and then there's a listen check as well. Is if someone wants to go, oh, I want to listen for something, and there isn't anything for them to hear, you can just say you don't hear anything. You don't have to have them roll the dice. You just cover over the thing, which is smooth as fuck.
It helps like avoid those slowdowns of people going, right, I need to find my dice, roll my dice, and then check the skills, and then give it back to you, and you go, what do you see? Because you just go, there isn't a link, keep going, keep walking.
I also was very much a fan of, for almost the entirety of play, I didn't roll dice. The first 3 sessions as a keeper, I rolled 1 die, I think. 1 or 2 dice throughout the entire thing. It's all the dice rolling is in the hands of the players, and that's super clean.
And even on the player side of things, like across the 4 sessions we did, I think we rolled as many dice rolls in the final session as we had throughout the previous 3.
Yes,
if possibly even more in the final session. But so like over the first 3 sessions, there were like 2 or 3 sets of rolls per player in each session, compared to like dozens or so in a D&D session. So you that kind of gives you a sort of a level on how less dice reliant it is. And like the final session, there were loads and loads of dice rolls, but that's because we got into a bunch of combats and a bunch of people went insane.
Damn them.
Yeah, I was like, that was the biggest driving force for that last thing, for the sheer number of dice rolls. It was just everyone going insane. I think we ended that campaign with 4 out of 5 characters being indefinitely insane.
We only had 1 sane person.
Nice.
But no one lost a character. Which when we wrapped up the end of the 3rd session, it did look like, oh god, we're gonna lose a character. Like one of these characters is gonna die. Which is a big thing in Call of Cthulhu. I think that's always going to be the hardest thing, of swapping from something like D&D to something like Call of Cthulhu, where you're going from high fantasy heroic adventurers to Call of Cthulhu, where you're just playing humans. You're just a human person. You get shot, you can die. It's full on. It's so brutal. Someone just shoots you once, and that's it. Your character's dead. But because of that, it's a lot more of a you don't hit the combat that much. It's far more investigation and role play. It's definitely a very role play, story intensive sort of system, far more than D&D is.
I enjoyed a lot of the sort of the focus on the theatrics and the role play of it. And because the combat had its point in the few points that we had it, but we resolved a lot of the other conflicts via role playing it, which was nice. It made a nice change. I quite enjoyed that. But where we did get into combat, it was quite visceral and engaged, so it does have that sort of biopic sort of thing.
I mean, we did go into it with, because the Keeper's Handbook does have the thing of, this is going to be lethal. Characters can die rapidly and instantly, and you should make sure your players are aware of that when you start playing, because they are just human.
I love that threat of
Yeah.
everybody might die. It makes me so stressed.
Yeah. And I don't think I don't think it really hit people. I don't think it necessarily hit home with people until that very first shotgun blast that one of you took, where it took off. It people
Someone's
have got
ear.
yeah. People, I think people have your investigators have sort of 10 to 13 hit points sort of thing, and a shotgun blast can do 4d6 damage. So it can do 24 damage sort of thing. The one character lost of their 13 hit points. I think he lost eight hit points just from one shot.
That's an arm or a leg at least.
Yeah,
that was the first day.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just oh, okay. Oh wow, though that hurts. So then when you hit combat and you start coming up against creatures that aren't human, that react in different ways, or in the case of this campaign, have the ability to cast spells. 8. There you go. It was 8 of his 10 hit points from the shotgun blast, and that was through a wall. The damage was reduced because of armor. Also, yes, Jordan. Yeah, that's the entertaining thing we'll cover. So the campaign, by the end of the campaign, Jordan's character, the only person who hadn't gone insane, finished the campaign with more sanity than he started.
I think that's clearly because he stole everybody else's when they were sleeping.
He was the true
He
mythos creature.
was the Lovecraft.
He was no investigator. He was one of the mythos.
Yeah, he was Mythos Man.
Mythos Man.
Dear. But so, amulet of sanity stealing. That is true. You are wearing. Your character did have an Anka amulet from one of the Egyptian pyramids. That does explain a lot.
We're on to you.
Yeah, there we go. You've been found out. Yeah, I mean, I quite just from the keeper perspective, I'd be super interested in playing that system as a player.
I was going to say, would you roll that again as a gatekeeper, or whatever you said it was called?
I'm a
just to give a gatekeeper. Apparently, I don't know why.
Keeper of arcane lore.
Keeper
games.
of the keys.
Yeah, keeper of the keys.
As a GM.
Yeah, as a GM, I would happily run that again. I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. It's something I would like to see what it's like from the other side. I would really like to see what it's like as a player.
See how quickly you went insane.
Yeah.
Rapidly.
10 minutes.
I mean, to be fair, the sanity loss is in part due to me for missing something in the rules. Because they were all asking me about what stats were needed and whatnot, and they were asking what does power do.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that only decides magic. You're not going to be casting spells, so no, you need power. Turns out sanity is based on power, so they all had far less sanity than they would have liked, which resulted in them losing sanity rapidly.
I mean,
that makes for a good time.
Yeah.
Something like a wild Friday night and too many shots before you go to the club. It's all good.
Oh man, it's definitely a wild Friday night after a few too many shots of you suddenly summoning Cthulhu.
Yeah.
I told you, man, I grew up with the gothiest of friends.
You've got some interesting friends.
They spent their Friday night summoning Cthulhu. Well, that's an interesting way of spending your Friday night. I'm down.
There's not much going on in my neck of the woods, so gotta make your own fun.
Make your own fun. Summon a great old one and deal with the consequences afterwards.
Yeah.
How did you find it, Nathan, as a player in comparison to something like D&D?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was interesting. Yeah, it was like I've mostly played fantasy RPGs, so it was sort of interesting playing one that's set in a more realistic setting. Not, I was going to say modern, but it's not because it's set in 1920. But but sort of like one sort of grounded in actual reality.
Yeah,
was a nice change to sort of high fantasy and magic. So yeah, I enjoyed that. I'd play it again, and I also quite like that it seems like it's set out in that sort of post story character development way that of stringing together multiple short run adventures with the same sets of characters is an interesting idea, and I like the idea of sort of running through a bunch of sort of shorter run stories rather than one massive, all-encompassing and continuously running thing. Because I think it lets you explore more elements and different themes without having some really confusing mangle of story.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to having to read through some of the other adventures I've got. As I recently discovered, I have a lot of other adventures. There's still one more in the Keeper Handbook. I've still got, I think, 2 in the starter set. The DM screen comes with 2 on its own. And then I don't know where we've got the other book from, I'll be completely honest, but we have just another book that's got about 8 adventures in it as well. Cat, yeah, Southern Cat.
Parsnip has arrived.
Presents must be made known. I think if anyone is looking to sort of play a horror-themed RPG, Call of Cthulhu is good. It does a pretty nice job of sort of getting the horror, which is quite nice. I will say, I have quite enjoyed running horror.
Yeah.
Providing horror for other people.
Not necessarily being subject to the horror.
Yeah. I would be interested in playing it from the other side, but I'm...
Seeing how much we can make you cry.
Yeah. Yes, maybe. I'm definitely going to play it again. I'm sort of in the vague plans of organising to run some more stuff. I have to read through some of these adventures and sort of see if there's ways for me to modify them or enlarge them a little bit. Because the problem I found with the ones I've got right now is they always seem to be 1 to 2 sessions long, which is a little too short.
Gotta make it like a mega mix. The Cthulhu mega mix.
The Cthulhu mega mix.
Yeah. Now I'm just thinking about a mega mix that's Cthulian based. That's
Yeah.
Like the Cthulhu boss is coming.
Here is your summoning soundtrack.
Amazing.
I mean, I think what I might do is look to see if there's any like pre-made campaigns and sort of see how long they run for. So 4 weeks was fun to get the grips with it, but you miss a lot of the. I think a lot of the nuances of the game were missed because it was so short.
How long were you running your sessions for?
3 hours.
Like 3.5.
So that is it's quite short, isn't it?
Yeah. It's not meant.
I think somewhere between sort of 6 and 8 weeks.
Yeah.
Will probably give you just that little extra depth.
Yeah.
Because you've got that little bit more time.
Yeah. But it will also put a lot more into because that epic was very quick into the. Although the first 2 sessions were just like pure investigatory work. You just walking together, putting the pieces together, but not all that much happened. And then it was like session 3 was not much stuff, and then session 4 was just nothing but action. Which is supposed to be sort of this build up into the action because that's what the mythos is like. But it was like 2 sessions wasn't. To me, felt like it wasn't enough of a build-up. It was... You didn't accelerate enough. It was walk, jog, sprint.
Yeah. The tension was pretty well built during the first sort of like 2 slow boil sessions.
Yeah.
But then it really does just go...
Yeah.
In the last session, just like the last session is just like, okay, this is completely batshit. How did we get here?
Yeah.
We were walking through the woods last time, and I'm pretty sure we
were having a picnic, and no one was on fire. Like, what has happened now?
Now everyone's on fire, and the sun is on the planet.
Yeah.
Why is the sun gone blue?
Wonderful. Well, there will be some Call of Cthulhu coming to the channel later this year. That is a promise. We have spoken about that. Obviously, for those who have been paying attention, there hasn't been much on YouTube from us recently. We've just been doing a lot of streaming. That's because you know, we're all stuck at home.
Because 2020 is
a thing.
is a whole thing, guys. Okay,
Just 2020 is a thing.
gives a
It
break.
happened. 2020 has happened.
Yeah, 2020 has happened. So we're a little delayed with our plans for what we were doing this year, unsurprisingly.
Yep.
However, I will add on this because it will be coming out relatively soon on social media stuff, because this is a good point to add this. You will start seeing some more stuff on YouTube coming soon. We have been looking into things. Soon TM, yeah. It should be soon. It should be within the next couple of weeks, to be fair. If I look at the times properly, it should be in 3 weeks' time. If things stick to plans as they should be. Because we have looked into various things and we've had some changes and whatnot. There will be, I imagine, there will be a post. We'll probably do a video at some point on stuff, because we're not just making changes just because of what's going on. We're going to make some more permanent changes, and we'll tell you why and what we're doing and what's going to happen. But that's a thing that will come. But yes, there will be Call of Cthulhu this year. It should be this year. We should still have time to get it in this year, but it's going to be far later this year now, rather than the initial time we were expecting it to be.
As with everyone else, our plans have changed because 2020. We're rolling what we can.
And the world is not rolling 20s at the moment.
Well, I mean, depends on what it's rolling for. It might have been rolling some 20s.
That's true. Running for the eradication of the human race, 2020.
This got dark.
Yeah, I mean, we
Talking of beautifully light and wonderful fun and glorious sunshine, Plague Tale,
yeah.
full of rats and death and terrifyingness.
What a segue!
Yeah, that was a segue.
I got
That was
you.
a segue.
You I don't know if you guys have ever listened to our podcast or seen any of the videos. Me and Georgie just waffle round and round and round the houses. So segues are my fortes.
I have indeed listened to the podcast.
Yes.
I do enjoy, and you are quite the master of the segue.
Oh yeah.
It's a skill worth learning. It's a skill I'm gonna have to learn now.
Definitely, if you're a bit of a waffler, you need that to be able to be right, hang on, where were we?
Where were we? What was going on? What was happening?
Why is the sun gone blue? Yeah.
Why is the sun gone blue? So Plague Tale is from last year. It's last year. Yeah. I think it was sort of. It's relatively new. I want to say September, October last year.
Yeah, something like that. Definitely, it's like Q3, Q4 last year.
Yeah.
So, the trailers made it look super interesting. The trailers were just okay, it was a very masterfully done trailer in that it was, that caught my attention, and I'm interested in the mechanics, but I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, I was hard into it from the minute they revealed the trailer.
Yeah. So was I. It was just that looks interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So the sort of basis for the game, again, this is a game that I have been playing on this channel recently. If you wish to watch it, I imagine those VODs are in fact still available because they last for about 30 days. And I've only been playing it for the last couple of weeks.
Yes, there are at least 2.
Yeah, there we go. Again, if people are interested, I can probably get that.
Click on the video thingy, majiggy.
Yeah, video is up there. There.
Yeah.
I'm using the wrong hand because it's mirrored.
It's still up there.
In this direction.
Yeah, there. You just did the wrong direction.
Yeah.
It's that way, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I suddenly looked at the screen and went, no.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, should change direction. Right. But rats.
Rats what?
So, the story makes it sound, or the trailer and the sort of information to go with it is, you play a young French woman in the time of plague in France, and you have to escort your brother around France for reasons, whilst avoiding the Inquisition. That's basically what it makes it out to be like. And it's all about puzzle solving and whatnot, because I'm not actually sure how old Amicia is. I want to say...
I'm not sure it actually gives an age.
I'm not sure it gives, but it sort of implies an age. I want to say sort of 15, 16.
I'd have said that she was probably like 14 or so, yeah.
Yeah. So, you are obviously a very, very young woman trying to avoid the Inquisition. It is not going to go well for you. It's another one of those games of if things get close to you, you just die.
Mm-hmm.
It's immediate death.
I mean, in this case, it's a teenage girl with clothes versus a middle-aged man in armor with a sword.
Yeah. So, yeah, it makes sense.
The logical consequence happens.
Yeah. I fully get that when you get seen and something catches up to you and catches you, you die. That makes sense. That's just how it works. So yeah, I was interested in this game immediately, and it wasn't even like sort of like Call of Cthulhu. Oh, this will be funny for people to watch. Interested. I was legitimately like, this looks like an interesting game.
Yeah.
The potential horror of it concerns me, but it looks like an interesting game, so I might be all right.
I have of the concerns.
Sunny tail.
You just get used to it after a while. She's just like, window out, window out, window out.
Actually, the best part is it's just this tail that just comes across the screen. No other part, just the tail.
We just need the Jaws music cut in.
That would be fair. Yeah.
I don't know, Nathan. Did you look at any of the trailers, or was it again you when I started
I didn't
playing?
See any of the trailers. You just said you were playing it, and I went, "Okay, what's this game?" And then you were playing it, and I went, "Oh, okay. Oh, that got dark." Oh, shit.
Yeah. It does get dark.
I was like, okay, this is a game about the plague. Okay, this is a game about the plague.
I think what I was, because I think they did a lot of really interesting like teaser trailers more than like huge gameplay reveals.
Yeah.
Which were really, really interesting, and they were sort of hinting at a lot of the different elements of it and the different aspects on it. And obviously, like a lot was to do with the rats and the little fire lights and things like that, and the use of light and stuff. And I thought that was always like, that was one of the main points for me that I was like, that looks crazy.
Yeah. That was so. It's just the like, this is just a thing that you cannot beat it. You just have to, look around for the light source and use the light. Which that sounds cheaty as fuck when you say it like that. Use the light, Amicia.
Yeah.
The light was within you all along.
Yeah.
Because you've gone insane.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, by the end of it, I think you'd forgive her for losing her marbles.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
She goes through.
There is no way by the end of that she is a functioning person. She is not a functioning person at the end of that. Hugo maybe if his body does the mind does his thing to protect him and just makes him forget everything and he just represses the entire memory. But Amicia she will never function properly. There is no fixing what she went through. Heather, you said you played a little of the demo.
Yeah.
I don't know where that went through because I didn't look at the demo, so I don't know what part that covers.
It was basically the first chapter, I think, or the first couple. It was like definitely the beginning of the game. So you get like the initial character set up. You go through the house, and then you have to like guide your brother out, and then you're in the forests for like a little bit, and then you're basically just working your way through. But I just found that like actual gameplay was really janky and unwieldy, and it just ended up ruining like what, because I didn't want to commit to getting it because like I said before about like the cost versus like how much you're going to play and how much it's going to be like how much you're going to be into it and whatever. So I waited, and then the demo came out, and I feel like I made the right choice. That's fair.
One of my biggest complaints of the game was the janky mechanics. I don't know how much it would have shown up in the first few chapters, but it reaches the point of the stealth mechanics specifically super
they
janked.
were really bad.
there is a massive suspension of disbelief going on in that, because just the stealth mechanics have no grounding in reality. So much of it is you've just got to ignore how ridiculous it is. But it's another one of those games where they've gone, we're focusing on this thing, we're focusing on the story element of it, and everything else be damned.
The story and the appearance, because it is a beautiful game.
Yeah.
It's a very pretty
absolutely,
game. Which is a really weird thing to be saying about a game like that, actually. It's really beautiful, but there are some really dark moments. It's really beautiful when you're crawling through piles of dead bodies, but it looks fantastic. There are parts later on in the game where the stealth mechanics are so janky. I triggered a guard to see me, and then I would hide in grass. I accidentally stood up whilst in grass, so the guard saw me. So then I crouched back down, and I literally moved maybe a foot to my right, and the guard walked to the position where he saw me and just stared at the ground for a good 30 seconds, and then went, must have been nothing, and turned off. And I was a bit like, okay. I mean, again, an element of, I get why it does that, because if you get caught, you die. There's nothing you can do about it. But there should be a bit more, they should look around a bit.
Yeah, I mean, the sort of consequences of your actions in that get completely destroyed. Yeah. Because if you're taking literally 2 steps to your left, and then there's a guard standing there, and you're like, dude, the grass is only like 2.5 foot. I am a person. You can see me. And there was also the occasional times where I was using the mechanics the game told me to use, and I still got spotted because it for some reason put me out of the cover, and I was a bit like, okay, I mean, I'm doing what you told me to do in the tutorial.
Well, this is it. Like, I found that in the actual demo beginning tutorial that it would tell you to do something, so you did that, but then you were doing it wrong.
I mean, like in the tutorial, there's the boar that you've got to fight or kill, and it's like, oh, you've got to swing your sling, and you're like, you do that, and it's like it instantly spots you, and you're like, but that's literally what you just told me to do. What the fuck? And so you've got that sort of like clashing of what you're meant to be doing and the mechanic, and how you're actually meant to do it is not quite as obvious as it might originally seem.
Yes. I think the other really big thing I hit by the end of the game, it starts off, it's a puzzle solver with a bit of stealth, and you've got to go through and solve the puzzle and stuff. By the end of the game, you can kill everything you encounter. I just reached the point of just being like, I can just kill all these guys. I don't actually have to try and sneak past them. I can just kill them. I have the tools.
That's where I'm like, nah. If you're going to be a fighting game, that's fine. Have some combat and, have that all the way through. But if you're trying to, like, sell it on being, like, puzzle and stealth, and, like, I've been playing Uncharted 4, and that's, like, but that is combat and puzzles. If you can do stealth, great, go for it. But that's predominantly swinging on ropes and shooting people. It's not trying to be one or the other.
Yes. It was, that I completely gave up on stealth by the end of the game. Like, there was no reason to do it.
Like 2/3 of the way through the game, stealth becomes optional because you don't need it anymore. There is no point in which you can fuck up so hard that you can't win out on a fight, even though you are a girl with a sling against people in full plate armor. You can still
fully
win
trained
that combat.
Soldiers in armor.
You and your sling can still win that combat.
It's like
that said, I did quite like the way that it slowly introduces like the additional mechanics and like the alchemy, because you do only get like the last alchemical thing just before the last set of missions. So like it does do a decent job of adding elements to the puzzling like slowly in a way that keeps it interesting, and you don't end up with just this massive toolbox from the beginning where you just go, well, I'm going to use that one because it's like the universal toolbox.
Yeah.
You do actually have to change them, and you've got to think about it a bit.
Yeah.
So that I thought was quite nicely done.
Yeah, as long as there was stealthing involved, and I had to sit there and be like, which tool works for this situation, it was like, yeah, okay, this is good. I enjoy this, and I did enjoy when you gain the ability to sort of start being able to take out guards with a particular. There's one particular alchemical that's like you can use it to force guards to take off their helmets, and then you can kill them with the sling. When that was first introduced, I was like, oh, this is really cool. Because you couldn't get that much of it. But then by the end of the game, I reached the point where I had all of the alchemical things I had. I was just running around with maximum numbers constantly.
And a fully upgraded backpack.
Yeah, I was carrying the maximum number of consumables, which does sort of tie into Jordan's asked question about if it's possible to soft lock the game by running out of the materials needed to create the alchemy items. Or did it just spawn in more? It always spawned more of the ingredients you needed to solve a puzzle at the start of a puzzle.
So, no.
Yeah.
Short answer, no.
No.
I mean, if you launched into a mission, used all of them poorly, you would just load back at the beginning of the mission and not waste them, so you couldn't really soft lock the game.
Yeah, but yes, there were. It wasn't really possible to soft lock yourself out. It was just always there, and normally there was more than just one thing. So if you really screwed it up, you could go back, restock it, and do it again, kind of thing. So, not really. There were a couple of times it would set you up to say you should use. It sort of implied you should use this type of alchemical, and then as you start playing it, you actually later find out you didn't have to use that one. You could have used something else entirely.
Which usually turned out it told you to use the rare and expensive thing, and you could have done it with the far easier to obtain material.
Yeah.
Which was kind of like, well, that's a bit of a dick move game.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, if I'd known that, I could have done more upgrading to my gear if I hadn't have wasted so much on that super expensive thing, because the game told me that's what I had to use. Yeah. And the only reason why I found out I didn't have to use that is because there was a particular point where it's like, I don't have enough materials to create more of that expensive thing, so I have to test if something else will work better. Because otherwise I can't. Yeah, it turns out it did, because otherwise I can't complete this mission. I'm going to have to restart this whole thing and go back and re-get as many things as I can and just not use any of them. But yes, it turned out there was another way, and the game just decided not to tell me that. So, whee!
Thank you, game.
Yeah, thank you, game, indeed. But I think overall, it was a very good game. As I said, it was very, very pretty.
How long was it?
I think again it was about, I want to say about 15, 16 hours.
Yeah.
And I missed stuff. Like, I actually didn't do all that much full-on exploring. I missed a lot of, like, there's 3 sets of collectibles that you can do. And I got not much of any of them. So if you want to really, like, full-on explore, then there is a lot of stuff to go looking for. Yes, John, that was I was using the blowing up thing, which is super expensive, and you can only carry one of. But instead, I could just use the fire thing, which you get loads of. I could carry 16 of, I think, rather than just one. And I only need to make those. I needed like 1 sulfur and a rock. Whereas the poppy explodey thing, I need like 4 sulfur, a rock, and something else. Yes, it was about. I think Nathan's just trying to calculate the length time of all the VODs.
Oh no, I'm trying to get your Steam profile up.
That's not a bad way of doing it. You see my entire
I
full.
can't find it. I'm not logged. I can't log into Steam on my desktop here because my keyboard is behind my microphone and very clacky.
Unfortunate. I think I want to say because it was like four solid sessions of play. Oh, plus the other half of the Call of Cthulhu session. So probably 18 hours then, actually.
Yeah, something like that.
It's on Game Pass at the moment, so I might have a little gander through.
Yeah, I mean, if you've got access to it, then it's probably worth having a playthrough. Because if nothing else, the story's quite cute. The dialogue is nice. The voice acting is very good, and it is pretty as.
Yes.
It's got nice volumetric lighting, so that's always a plus in my books.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it is. I absolutely love the story. Again, it started in one place and ended up somewhere else entirely. But it wasn't like out there. It wasn't like you're sitting there like, oh, that's not unexpected. It was kind of, but not unexpected. But it wasn't convoluted. You were just there like, okay, no. Where this ended up, if you go back, there are lots of things that point to it throughout the whole story, but they just don't make sense at the time.
Yeah. The sort of line between beginning and end is fairly fairly straight, but it's not overly linear. But like the story makes a lot of sense. It's not like you've gone in some spaghetti thing and ended up over here.
Yeah.
It actually does sort of go vaguely in a sensible line.
Yes.
But at the beginning, it's sort of like, okay, this kid's not well, and she's looking after him because reasons and things. And at the end, you're like, okay, so there's some weird magic going on as well, and you're like, okay, that I didn't see, but as the story develops, it becomes more and more clear. And by the end of it, you're like, yeah, weird magic shit exists in this world, but it's not where you initially think this story is going to lead. Yes, for sure.
I enjoyed it. It was great fun to play. Again, I might go back and play it again in an attempt to find
get all them achievements.
Get all the achievements. There's no difficulty setting for it, but it would be quite easy to set a difficulty for yourself by just going, I'm not going to kill anyone that I don't have to.
Yeah.
Because there are some that you have no choice but to
yes, you're forced into, or at least not. I'll reword that, I suppose. I'm not going to kill everyone directly myself. Because part of the puzzles are solved by like releasing rats and things into killing people so that you can get past, and you have to do that. Because it's otherwise impossible, because in places you just cannot sneak. But yeah, it was a very enjoyable game. I would say if you're able to... there are no achievements for not killing anyone. No, John, that's one of the things I checked. I was interested to know if it was going to say there are specific people that you can kill, and then outside of those, like 4 people, you can't kill anyone else. But no, that is not the case. What were some very... gripes. Oh yeah, this is what I was going to say about Call of Cthulhu, and then realised it wasn't Call of Cthulhu, it was actually this game. Some of the chapters are a little weird that they're a chapter.
Yeah, there's one that's like 20 minutes long.
Yeah. But you don't do anything. It's just like an interactive cutscene more than anything else.
Yeah, just a big exposition filler for a bit.
Yeah. But you still have to go through the loading screen because it renders a very beautiful backdrop, but you have to go through a loading screen to render the beautiful backdrop. When one chapter was essentially as John just said, was essentially a cutscene, and it would just be like, it would work smoother in my mind if those things were just cutscenes. Instead, I mean, they put stuff in there so you can, walk around and interact and pick up objects and stuff, but it'll just be a bit like, if you want people to find those things, just put them somewhere else. Like, just take them out of that chapter, put it into that chapter, and just make that a cutscene, because then whilst that cutscene's running, you can load the next chapter in the background. Because
that cutscene chapter, you can pick up supplies, and you can follow the cutscene sort of story section. But there's nothing else you can do. You can't impact anything. You are doing these few points, and you have the option of upping your materials, and that's it.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, cool. At the beginning of the next bit, well, let me be a workbench so I can craft.
Yeah. Yeah.
But just have the previous bit being an entire cutscene on its own. That's
Yeah.
all you needed.
Agreed on that. All right. Any other thoughts anyone wants to add onto a Plague Tale Innocence? Anything else to any of the other things we've been discussing?
9.
No.
Wonderful. In that case, thank you for joining us, Heather.
Thank you for having me.
People can find you. We've spoken a little bit about your podcast and your website. You can find you on social media at various places.
We are mainly on Twitter at Valkyrie's blog, or we are on Instagram at the Valkyries Online. You can find all our links on the homepage. We are on YouTube as the Valkyries Online. We are on Twitch. We're hosting this stream at the moment, so you can check us out on there. I will remember to do some streams at some point, probably. And yeah, that's us in a nutshell.
You can find the Valkyries podcast on Spotify as well as Podbean, I believe.
We're on all sorts.
You're
Apple
on
Podcast, Google Podcast, Stitcher, TuneIn, and pretty much all of your reputable, good podcast platforms. I personally use Spotify.
Well, there you go. You know what to do, people. Go find the podcast.
There we go.
And enjoy the segues and the waffling.
I do enjoy a good waffle. On that note, thank you very much for listening, people. Hopefully we'll see you in some of the other stuff that we do. Hopefully we'll see you in some of the Valkyrie stuff that goes on. The next podcast will be out. We don't know what we're going to discuss, but there will be a podcast next month on a particular date. Pay attention to social media. You'll see when we're going out. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. If you are listening, have a good night, evening, day, whatever time you may be in. Goodbye.
Have
Thank
a better
you.
2020 than it's been so far.
There you go.
And stay inside.
Stay safe. Stay inside. Thank you and
Yep.
goodbye.